3 years ago, I played a game called Five Nights at Freddy's. And you know what? I enjoyed it. I liked the simple yet engaging gameplay, the animatronic designs, and the atmosphere that left me scared at times. But it's been 3 years now, and a lot has changed. Not just with me, but with Five Nights at Freddy's. A new game has come out with its DLC, a movie is coming out, another game is coming out in December, but I have a confession to make. I haven't beat FNAF 2. I haven't actually beaten any of the games in the Five Nights at Freddy's core collection. I've gotten to night 4 and 5 on some of them, but I've never beaten any of them. I've never had that satisfaction of seeing the final 6 a.m. come on screen and realizing I've done it. But that's about to change. Whatever it takes, I'm going to beat FNAF 2. But first, here's a quick history lesson.
September 4th, 2014, only 1 month after the release and success of Five Nights at Freddy's, the game's creator, Scott Cawthon, released a teaser for his next game with the subtitle Grand Opening. This image showed a slightly withered and broken down version of Freddy Fazbear with holes and wires poking out, as well as a release date of 2015. And with one image, it was confirmed that Five Nights at Freddy's is a franchise now. This reveal made sense considering how well Five Nights at Freddy's was doing, but I don't think anyone could have expected this, especially considering how long it usually takes to, make video games. Then, he posted another image, this time showing a destroyed version of Bonnie next to a new design of Bonnie with the caption, "Something borrowed, something new." The next image had a similar theme, with Foxy being right next to a pink and white Foxy, which many people assumed was some sort of girl Foxy. The next image showed the two main mechanics of the game, the flashlight and the mask, with a withered down version of Foxy being shown in the hallway, with the caption, "Nowhere to hide." The last teaser shows a button for Cam 11 along with a hazard sign. This is kind of just a boring teaser, let's just move on. Hold on. Go back. I think there's something else here. I'm just gonna brighten up this image and... oh, I found it. They've added Cam 10 to the game! And also a new character. Finally, after many teasers, on October 21st, 2014, Scott released the trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's 2, showing us the designs of the new animatronic, as well as the gameplay. This trailer also had the return of Phone Guy, who died in the last game. It also shows off that there are going to be no doors in this game. Wow, they're really shaking things up here. I wonder what's next, some sort of Shadow Freddy. The trailer ends with a jump scare from Foxy before the title appears, which is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I actually think this is a pretty good trailer, even better than the one for the first game because it actually showed gameplay. My favorite scene has to be at the start, when they're doing all the showcases of the withered animatronics just lying there, and then it panned to Toy Bonnie, who opens his eyes. This was a good introduction to the toy animatronics, which at the time we didn't know anything about besides a few designs of characters like Toy Bonnie and the puppet. This trailer led to a whole lot of theories and speculation over what exactly was happening. One of the main questions was kind of surrounding Phone Guy and what happened to him, which made sense considering last time I checked, dead people don't usually come back to life. This started a bit of a theory that FNAF 2 was a prequel. No, it can't be. It can't be a prequel. That's like the number one thing a sequel shouldn't do. Not be a sequel. But now, fans just waited for the game to finally release. Now, it's 2015, and Five Nights at Freddy's 2 has now been released to the public. Wait, let me check something. Oh, the game's been out for 2 months already. Yeah, the game got pushed to an earlier date, which you don't really see all that often, considering games usually get delayed because of how long they take to make. But I guess FNAF 2 was just too good to be kept from the public. So, on November 11th, 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was actually released. So with that done, I think it's time we actually play the game.
When I first played FNAF 1, I used this, the Five Nights at Freddy's Core Collection. It had all 5 of the first FNAF games, and it was pretty decent. But if I really want to beat Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I have to play it the real way, on Steam. So that's right, we don't need this anymore.
The game opens with a title screen very reminiscent of the first game, but instead of just one animatronic, there's 3. Scott's clearly putting that increased budget from the first game to good use. We see a newspaper, but the problem is I don't know what I'm looking at. That's better. Then the actual game starts, and we reunite with Phone Guy, who basically just does what he did in the first game, but now with even more lore being shared. My favorite! The gameplay here is a lot more going on than the first game. The office is where you're going to be spending most of your time, so get used to it. Here you'll deal with all the animatronics, except for 2, by just putting on your mask when they appear. Although sometimes the timing is different between animatronics. Some come from the vent, and when you see them, put the mask on, and some start in the hallway and then come into your office, and when you see them there, put your mask on. There are only 2 animatronics that aren't affected by the mask. Withered Foxy, because I mean, look at him. Does he look like someone who'd be fooled by something as dumb as a mask? That's what I thought. Foxy requires you to shine the flashlight on him 5 to 6 times before he goes away. Except, most of the time he just kind of stays in the hallway, even if you've used your flashlight on him. The camera returns with even more than FNAF 1, but don't worry about that. You won't actually be looking at any of them, except for Cam 11, the prize counter. Even though you're going to be in your office most of the time, you're going to be routinely flipping that camera to wind up the music box. You'll be hearing that same song over and over and over again. He's very similar to Foxy from FNAF 1. You know, you just keep checking that camera again and again. But Foxy, you could at least see him. In this game, you can't see the puppet unless you use the flashlight, which wastes flashlight battery, which you need in later nights to deal with Foxy. And if you forget to wind up the music box, well, night 1's easy, just like the first game. The only thing you really have to do is wind up the music box until about 4 AM until Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, or Toy Freddy come into your office, and then at that point you just put on the mask. According to Phone Guy, these animatronics have a full criminal database, facial recognition, and advanced mobility. This game takes place in 1987. Anyway, the first night's never usually that hard in any of these games, so let's just move on to the next night. The start of the night puts you in a cutscene where you're looking from the perspective of Freddy Fazbear, and you can look left and right to see either Bonnie or Chica. In the background are the scariest animals of all, seagulls. Eventually the screen glitches and text appears. or ERR. Night 2 is just a harder Night 1. Who could have expected that? This night also introduces us to new animatronics that'll become more important as the nights go on. There's Mangle, probably the most unique animatronic in the whole game. Unlike other animatronics who only have one path, Mangle has two. They'll either come in through the hallway, in which case just shine your flashlight on them, or through the vent, and when you see them in the vent, just put on your mask to avoid dying. If they do end up getting in your office, they'll just kind of look at you. They know what's about to happen. You're dead. You're not coming back. Then there's Balloon Boy. Where do I begin? Balloon Boy gets into your office through the vents, and if you don't put your mask on when he's there, he'll take your flashlight. This isn't a problem in the earlier nights, but it becomes very prevalent with a certain character. He's the first animatronic in the series up to this point who doesn't actually kill the player, but if he does come into your office, well, you're basically dead. Animatronic is Withered Foxy, the most annoying animatronic to deal with in this game. You just have to use the flashlight, but you never know if you've really dealt with him, because he'll just kind of stay there for a bit longer than he should. But now, since you need the flashlight to deal with Withered Foxy, if Balloon Boy appears, you might as well just press escape because you are not living. And if you got both Mangle and Balloon Boy, at that point just uninstall the game, because luck is not on your side. Night 2 starts with another cutscene, but this time, the animatronics are looking at you. This one has the exact same atmosphere as the first one, but I think this one is a little bit better. Eventually, the screen turns to black with text, "It's me."
That's a reference to the first game. I bet Scott didn't think I'd catch that, but you know, I'm pretty smart. I can count to 2.
Night 3 introduces the Withered animatronics, who are a lot more annoying than the toys. Withered Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica show up in your office, and when you see them, quickly put on the mask. Another cutscene appears featuring Golden Freddy. These cutscenes are neat and all, but they're kind of just the same thing over and over, except this time a character is looking at you, or hey, another character is looking at you. I feel like adding more sound effects or just a different ambience would have really helped to make them each feel unique. Night 4 is where the difficulty really ramps up, or so I thought. At first, I was struggling a lot. Withered Foxy was taking up a lot of my flashlight, and Mangle and BB were annoying to deal with. But the major problem was with the Withered animatronics. Once they're in your office, you have barely any time to deal with them compared to the other animatronics that use the mask. This led to me dying over and over and over again, which led to me finding the big thing that helped me complete this game, no problem. Every time I used the camera, which was just to deal with the puppet, right after I flipped down the camera, I'd put on the mask in case there were any animatronics. This worked well and led to me finally winning the night. This night is just a harder Night 3, with the Withered animatronics being even more active than before, and Balloon Boy and Mangle being way more annoying. Another night, another cutscene, this one featuring the puppet. Again, just another character looking at you. And don't worry, those seagulls are back again. Night 5. We're almost there. Night 5 is just a harder Night 4. Surprising, I know. This is where the strat really came in handy, since the Withered animatronics come even more often compared to Night 4, and even the toy animatronics are more frequent. Balloon Boy and Mangle are also insanely active. They show up what feels like every hour, especially Balloon Boy, who ended a whole bunch of my Night 5 attempts. All of the things I found annoying about the later nights of this game just became worse. Except Mangle, they're okay. But after 5 hours of playing this game, I saw this.
I finally did it. I beat FNAF 2, and it only took me 5 hours. But now I can look back at that old tape I made and say, look at that idiot. You didn't beat FNAF 2.
The game ends with some music in the background and a paycheck of $100.50, and the reveal date of this game, 1987. It was a prequel after all, but at least 1987 was an important year for games. Important genre-defying titles were coming out back then. Legend of Zelda, Mega Man, Punch-Out, Final Fantasy, Metroid, and Elf the First Adventure, all released in 1987. So you know what? If FNAF 2 had to be a prequel just so that it took place during the year that Elf the First Adventure released, I'm fine with that. I think it's time we finally address the atmosphere. Compared to the first game, it is fairly weak, and the first game had pretty good atmosphere. It was dark and fairly quiet, which meant the jump scares felt even louder and more in your face. The cameras also helped add to the horror. Seeing those animatronics just looking at you for the first time was enough to scare any player who saw it. But FNAF 2 is almost the opposite of that. The atmosphere in FNAF 2 is bright, loud, and the cameras are barely used outside of Cam 11. The office is also a downgrade from FNAF 1. It's way brighter, which doesn't really help it feel like a horror game or location. And the office also looks stretched. This is probably because the engine that Scott was using at the time, Click Team, was only a 2D game engine with no option to have any sort of 3D models. So basically all the 3D models you were seeing were just pictures of said models. The office also feels open when compared to the first game. Whenever you see an animatronic in the halls or in the vents, you don't feel as scared because of how far away everything looks. In FNAF 1, which has a much smaller office, the animatronics that show up at your door are right up there at the window, giving you a sense of urgency to actually close the door. The cameras are also a lot weaker compared to FNAF 1. In that game, the cameras could be used to stall both Foxy and Freddy, and also looked dark and eerie. In FNAF 2, you'll really just be looking at Cam 11 for the prize counter, and the other cameras aren't nearly cool enough to warrant wasting your flashlight power on them. There are some cameras that do actually look really good, but they aren't really that scary. The ones that I feel are the creepiest are the ones where Withered Freddy is up close to the camera, because it reminds me of the way animatronics from FNAF 1 used to look at you. In this game, if an animatronic looks at you, they're weirdly far away, and it doesn't really help with the overall vibe. Although, I did learn that you can stun animatronics for a short time on the camera by using your flashlight on them. I learned this after beating the game. There are some things I actually think are done good, however. The jump scares in this game are way better than in FNAF 1. The worst jump scares in this game are still better than Foxy's in FNAF 1. The game is also a lot more stressful than the first game, and even if it is a bit difficult at times, I feel like stress in a horror game can definitely make the game scarier for the player. Now, I've saved the worst part of the atmosphere for last, but it's not something you can see, but rather what you hear. This game is loud, and it's not just the volume. There's always a sound effect playing, from Mangle's static to Balloon Boy's highs and hellos, or winding the music box. But there's a sound played more than any of them combined. This sound effect is there to show you if something's in the hall or vents, and in later nights, there is always something in the hall or vents, especially Withered Foxy, meaning your average later night game just sounds like this. Compare this to the original FNAF. The office is quiet even on busy nights. There are certain sounds like the circus that play often, but they aren't all that loud, they're kind of just in the background. Even Freddy's laugh or Chica in the kitchen is quieter than Foxy in the hall in this game. This means that the sudden noise when Bonnie or Chica are at the door, as well as the jump scares, actually have an impact since the game is usually pretty quiet. Now, I think it's time we go over a bunch of other stuff that I should probably mention. Night 6 and Custom Night are here just like in FNAF 1. Withered Golden Freddy, who appears on Night 6 in the hallway, and when he enters your office, either put on the mask or look at the camera, similar to Golden Freddy in the first FNAF game. There are also 3 extra animatronics that also appear as Easter eggs. Shadow Freddy appears in parts of service, and if you look at him for too long, he crashes your game. Shadow Bonnie, aka RWQFSFASXC, appears in the office, and if you look at him for too long, he crashes your game. Endo02, the long-awaited sequel to Endo01. He appears in the prize counter and blocks the left vent from other animatronics. Oh, did I say there's 3? I forgot about the most important one. Paper Pals. I can't believe I forgot. I'm so sorry. You guys can unsubscribe right now if you want. You guys can ask YouTube to delete my channel. How did I forget Paper Pals? Paper Pals appear in one of the party rooms, and occasionally one of them will come into the office. Guys, please don't unsubscribe. I need this. I made it up to all you Paper Pals fans. I'm so sorry. FNAF 2 also features minigames that appear after you've died. These are inspired by classic Atari games. First, there's Take Cake to the Children. An 8-bit Freddy Fazbear takes cakes to children who get angry if you don't give them cake. Outside, a child is crying, and eventually a car comes, and Purple Guy appears. He gets out of the car and kills the child, and when that happens, Freddy gets slower and slower while the children get angrier and angrier. Eventually, when all the children get angry, Freddy stops and you get jump scared by the puppet. The next game has a similar structure. You play as Foxy, and you walk into the room with 5 children. Then it repeats one more time, but this time, there's Purple Guy. And also, he has a slightly different sprite from the last minigame, but trust me, this is still Purple Guy. The next one shows the puppets giving gifts to the children and then putting them into animatronic suits. At the end, a fifth child appears and you get jump scared by Golden Freddy. Save Them is the most intricate of the minigames, where you follow the puppet to many different rooms. The most important room is the secret room, where you meet the Purple Guy again. The death minigames are pretty cool, but only if you don't know they actually exist, which unfortunately I did when I was playing the game. When FNAF 2 released, it was massively successful. This was a franchise now, and YouTubers made even more videos discussing and playing the game. This game added so much for fans to discuss and theorize over. The death minigames, the new animatronics, and even Phone Guy added so much lore. I think it's time I give my final thoughts on this game. I think the game is less scary than FNAF 1, and the gameplay loop is a lot more annoying than in the first game. The music box, Withered Foxy, and Balloon Boy brought down the experience for me, and it felt like this game was more focused on luck rather than reacting to what was going on. I think the problem is that in the first game, each animatronic had its own unique purpose. Bonnie and Chica came from the left and right side, Foxy is the reason to check the cameras, and Freddy is like all of them combined. In FNAF 2, except for a couple animatronics are just dealt with using the mask, which makes them kind of blend in. I think having some animatronics that use the camera more or use the hallway more would have really helped animatronics feel unique from one another. I like the death minigames, and I think that the jump scares are better, and some of the animatronic designs are pretty good. I just feel like the atmosphere is too loud and bright to be all that creepy, and the ambience sounds are just more annoying than something that's actually scary.
Today, I beat the sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's, called Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. There were some highs, but a lot of things really dragged down the experience for me. The loud, bright atmosphere, the not that creepy animatronic designs, and the monotonous gameplay loop just brought down the experience for me. But since then, a lot has changed. Not just with me, but with Five Nights at Freddy's as a whole. There's a movie that came out, a new game that came out, and unfortunately, more books. Why are there so many books? But I have a confession to make. I've never beaten Five Nights at Freddy's 3. I've gotten close. I'm literally on night 5, but I just can't find it in me to beat it. I know I should. I beat FNAF 1 and 2 now. Why not 3? But I just can't. This is why, sometime in the near future, I'm going to beat Five Nights at Freddy's 3. I have to. What happened here? So, let me get this straight. I go for 1 second, just to get a glass of water. Next thing I know, the power's out. It's just like this book I read in high school. Weird. Anyway, I guess I'll just try, and make the most of it. I mean, what else can I do? Can't play FNAF 3. What's that noise? Oh no! Oh no! It's Freddy Fazbear! It's Freddy Fazbear! No!